So before we get into the seed sowing, I wanted to show you a couple of projects that I am hoping to keep going this year. So first is this little wispy branch here, which is my coriander from last year. So I left this to go to seed. It let off some beautiful, beautiful white flowers and the bees absolutely loved it. And obviously I didn't have many flowers in the garden last year, so I thought, oh, do you know what, to keep pollinators coming in to help all the tomatoes and everything last year, I thought I'd just leave this go to flower and they'll just enjoy it. But what I didn't realise is that obviously then it set seed, so it set these really, really cool, amazing brown seeds. And obviously I noticed that they're very similar to obviously what I use in the kitchen for ground coriander and like whole coriander seeds when I'm making curries and Mexican food. So then I decided that I would keep this, I don't know what you call it, like dried coriander bush, and I just left it to properly dry out. I bought it in the house because obviously I wanted it to dry properly, and I thought this year I would try and see could I grow coriander from my own saved seed. Now, it's a pure experiment. I don't know much about growing things from saved seed, but I thought it would be super awesome and something that's really simple to learn from, because obviously if I plant the coriander, it bolts very quickly in our climate. So there's always an opportunity to try it again and just start on one project and see how it goes. So I'm going to pull off a few of these seed heads, pop them into one of the green trays, and hope for the best. Hopefully they grow. Now they are slow to germinate in general, so I'll give them sort of 3 weeks from today and we'll see how they go. So I'm just going to pull them off now. I think that's probably one of the nicest seed heads. I mean, there's loads in here, but there are some slightly darker ones. I think that probably didn't seed properly, but we had such a hot summer last year. I think it was over 30s when this obviously bolted. So I'd say some of them have got a bit sun scorched. So I'll just go with the ones that are the light brown that look like the seeds I've already planted to date. And I'm just going to pull them off like that. And I'm just going to see how they go. And then the rest of them, when I'm sitting down later watching telly or something, I will just pick off all the other ones. And I'm going to put them into, you know, those little herb jars that you get. And I have some empty coriander ones, and I'm going to keep this. It'd be so cool. I could whiz that up as my own ground coriander powder. You know, even if they don't germinate, they'll still be good for spices. Mind you, they don't smell like much. So we'll have to see. So I'm just going to put them in a little pile here. Okay, so that should be enough. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Then bring in my tray of compost. I'm just going to pick these up. Like that, just sprinkle them in. I'll be so happy if these germinate. Like, that would be a total win. Like learning to save your own seed. Then you'd be like so self-sufficient in like seed production. Now obviously, like, I won't let everything seed in the garden, because obviously it takes time for things to flower and make its whole life cycle. And obviously with the space being a premium, sometimes it's not enough time to leave them grow. Because I do think this took like a few months obviously to grow from seed, germinate, flower, and then set its own seed. So obviously it's a long time for a plant to be in the ground. And I like to substitute other things in its place, but a super cool thing to kind of learn. And then you can apply the same principles, I suppose, to things in the future when we have a bigger space. So yeah, the little coriander seeds. I really hope these do well. I'm just going to cover them over there, give them a watering. So yeah, I think I'm going to give them 3 weeks, because I do think coriander is kind of slow to germinate, you know, a bit like parsley. It takes that kind of, give it that 14 to 21 days, and I think it will be good to go. Be super cool. Really, really, really have like my fingers crossed now for this. And I love coriander. I know actually it's a bit of some people don't really like it. So, homegrown coriander. I'll keep you posted on how it gets on. The first few things that I'm going to sow today are some bits that I hope to see us through for the end of summer into autumn, and they are some salad things. So I picked up some more spinach. I've never grown this variety before. It's an oriental type spinach, kind of bunches when it grows, so I'm really looking forward to trying that because it's a completely different variety. Up until now I've always sown baby leaf spinach, so I think that'll be awesome, and I feel like maybe the harvest might be slightly bigger on those, so I'm looking forward to that. And it's actually really disease resistant, and it's slow to bolt, so even though I'm sowing it now, and if we get a really hot July and August, it should withstand the weather. And then I'm going to sow some more cos style lettuce. So this is very similar to the little gem that I had sown obviously all this season so far, but it's basically a purple variety. And I have found and learned this year that purple sort of crops and plants seem to do so much better than green ones. I don't know why, but it seems to be like woodlouse and slugs just don't like going after purple ones. So I've absolutely loved growing the little gem this year. It's really fast to grow. It's a perfect size for a 2-person household, and it's just nice to get a different pop of colour. And obviously we've been eating little gem now since like April, so obviously to switch up our main lettuce, it's nice just to grow another variety. So that's the one I picked up. It's called Moon Red, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I picked up that one, and it's nice to try something new, isn't it? And then I always buy this from the shop, so I'm really excited to grow this. This is a Lola Rosso lettuce. Obviously it says here that it's peppery taste, but I've never noticed that. So I'm interested to see versus buying it in the shop and what I grow at home and what it might be like. Because obviously you can buy these in like a trio, do you know, and they have the little bit of soil at the bottom of them. They're kind of like a living plant almost. So my mum grew this last year and it was lovely. So I'm really looking forward to growing that. I really like it. I think it will be a really lovely different texture in the salad. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And you can sow this all the way through to the end of July. So another good one in the summer when the weather's kind of warming up a little bit, even though it is really blustery, overcast today. It's actually gotten really cold. It's been like 10 degrees at night time, which is really quite cold for like summer, and it's really windy. So I'm a bit worried about my pepper plants in the main bed. I don't know, is it warm enough for them? I could be harvesting peppers in like November. But yeah, the Lola Rosso looks really cool, and it says we'll be able to harvest that all the way until the end of September, so that'll be super cool. So they're the kind of the main sort of lettucey type things that I'm going to be sowing today. And then I'm going to move on to some more of the like autumn harvest that I'm hoping to sow now. So I'm going to do my last sowing of beetroot. So this is a really old seed packet. This is one of the first seed packets I ever bought. There's a place here called GIY, and basically the whole ethos of them is that they grow everything on site or source it locally within the region, and then they cook it up. It's a really cool restaurant, basically, and they sell like all sorts of seeds and things. So like this is a really old seed packet, but this is kind of, yeah, the first place I ever went to kind of get stuff. So this is the Bicora's beet that you would have seen, obviously, that I've harvested already, and really like it. I've only got a few seeds left. I have one tray already ready to go into the ground, and this will be the last sowing that I do. So it does say to sow up until June, but we are like the first week of July, so I think that's fine. So yeah, really like that. And I always find the seeds on this are kind of cool. So yeah, that's the last sowing of beetroot for this year. I'll be sowing that now, and we'll see how it goes. And then some more spring onions. These are my favourite. So I'm sowing some white Lisbon. I know you could probably sow a slightly faster growing one, but these are the ones I had on hand, and I'm down to my last packet. I think I've sown like 3 packets of this so far, and then I will do another sowing of this in next month, August, and then I'll do another sowing in September, and hopefully what I sow in September will be overwintered then, like I did this year, well last year, and we'll have an early crop of spring onions in like March and April, so that'll be super nice. That was probably one of my favourite things about April this year. I had some stuff to pick from the garden that had overwintered, and they're really good overwintering, like it even says winter hardy on the pack. So they're called white Lisbon if anybody's interested in growing those. We got to probably, I think, -5 last year over the winter season. I think it was in like January, February, it dropped to like -5. I mean, they wilted a little bit, but they did come back straight away when it had warmed up. So fab variety for overwintering. So I'm sowing some more chard. This is white silver chard. I grew this last year. I've done one sowing for this so far, and I just grew it for like tiny little baby chard leaves, and I just gave the whole plant a haircut and popped it all into a salad. But this is a fab variety as well for overwintering. So my thought process is if I start it now, it will be strong enough then to be established to then grow throughout the winter, and then we should get some pickings up until like autumn, and then we can leave it in the ground and it should overwinter perfectly, and we'll get some early pickings then in spring. So some other things I'm going to sow for autumn and winter are brassicas, and to add to the brassicas that I've got in the main bed, I'm going to sow some kohlrabi. So this is a purple variety. Grew this last year, grew really nicely for me. I grew it through the summer. They create like these like weird looking globe things that are really cool to look at in the garden, and again super pest resistant. So really delighted to be sowing this time round. And then I'm going to try and sow some cauliflower. I did try this last year and I just don't think I gave it enough attention. I had it up on the windowsill upstairs to germinate because there just was not enough space outside, and sadly all the soil dried up. So yeah, they withered. All the little seedlings, they got about that big and then they just dried up. So yeah, I'm going to give that another whirl. So I'm thinking I can sow it now and see what happens with that. So I'm going to probably sow a few of those, but I won't plant, I don't think, everything that germinates. But we'll see how that goes. And then I'm also going to sow some cabbage. So I tried cabbage last year, total failure. So this is called Durham Early. I sowed this in October last year, hoping that it would overwinter and then create some lovely spring cabbages. And these were planted into the bed where the tomatoes are now. And like, they were a total fail. I basically just grew like big cabbage trees for all the world, and they never hearted up, and they just grew like really long stems and then like leaves off of the stems. So I presume that wasn't them bolting. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to give them another go and try and sow them now and see is it any different, give them time to establish so they're not stressed. It does actually say the perfect time to sow them is July, August and September. So I'm going to sow them now. So here is the system that I've bought. So I bought 4 of them, and I probably will definitely sow the front 2, and I might sow this next one, but I'll just show you them a little bit closer up. So I picked up 4 propagator sets, and I think they will be perfect for starting off seeds. So prior to this, I used to use little seed trays, which are really great, but I feel like now I'm more confident with pricking out seedlings and multi-sowing things in trays. I feel like this is like the next step now for me to maximise the amount of seedlings I get in the compost and for the amount of growing space that I have. So yeah, really looking forward to getting those started. So they're by a company called White Furs, which I believe is a British company. But yeah, I think I picked them up. I think they were $17.99 each, and I picked up all 4 that were in the shop because although I'm not sowing loads now, they'll be perfect for the spring when I do start sowing everything for spring, because I definitely didn't sow enough this spring. But yeah, how fab are they? I'm so looking forward to getting these started and seeing how they go. But I also feel as well, like in the spring when you're doing like the seed shuffle, you can literally just like pick up the whole thing, walk outside with it, and I'm not going to have any disasters where I trip and drop things and then they all fall out. So they all have these lovely vented lids, so that will help with like plants damping off. So I'm really happy with that. And then obviously you can remove the lid, and then inside is the tray with the holes pre-drilled in them, which is awesome. And then obviously I have the holder kind of tray that they insert into, which will hold water, so I can obviously water from the bottom, which will be great. And yeah, I think I could double these up as microgreen trays, and everything is like stackable. So when the seasons kind of come into an end, everything will stack super nicely away for next year. So I'm really pleased with that. So we've just filled up our seed trays with soil. So this is just a standard potting soil. There's nothing else in it. It's just a little potting compost, and it should give it enough nutrients for a few weeks when they germinate. And we're just going to start sowing some seeds. So we're going to start off with some spinach. So this is the F1 Oriental Mikado spinach variety. And oh, it doesn't have a little packet. You know, normally they have little packets in them. They're all loose in there. So I'm just going to sprinkle a few into my hands, and then I'm just going to dot them into the soil about a centimetre or so deep. And then pop in one seed into each cell. Spinach is so easy because it's so big, they're easy to pick up. So they're easy just to pop in, I find. Oh, a little escapee there. And it's just that simple, you know. And even if you get 2 in a cell like that, it's fine. You can just separate them out later. So then I'll just put the rest of these seeds here back in my packet. Just grab a little top dressing of compost, pop over the top of that. Just like this. And that's it. Firm it down, just so the seeds are contacting the soil. And there you have it. Spinach is sown. This compost is nice and wet, but I will water them in a bit later just to make sure the moisture level's still there. And that's what's super handy actually about this tray. This bit's obviously got no holes there, the outer tray, so I can probably just pop some water into this hole and it'll just soak up through the bottom, which is great. It's good to keep your leaves dry and things, stops funguses. So we'll move on to our next tray, and then we will sow our moon red cos lettuce. I'm really excited about this one because you know I love little gems. These seeds are a lot smaller, so they will be a little bit harder to sow, but a little sprinkling and then we can thin them out afterwards. Just try and get the soil off my hands there, and I'll just show you how little the lettuce seeds are. Sowing them individually, you can just scatter a few over the top and they'll germinate perfect. So I'm just going to go in with a little pinch, just like that. That's all I'm going to do. So simple. It's going to be hundreds of lettuces. I'm just going to do a little bit more just for this corner here. And not all of these will probably germinate, I don't think. So, and like that, just a small tiny dressing of compost over the top, just like that. Just a light dusting, nothing too big, because obviously a rule of thumb with the seeds is actually to just sow it the same diameter in depth down the way as the width of the actual seed. So obviously they're very thin, so they don't need to go down too deep. If they're too deep, they'll struggle to actually germinate through the soil. So the bigger the seed, the further down it needs to go. The smaller the seed, the tinier bit of dusting they need. And then like that, I'll always press it down just a little bit. I feel like that's such a good little tip for things to grow. Just it needs contact with the soil, you know. There we are, lettuce done. So, and then my next thing, my last tray, so this is basically all a leafy greens tray. Greens, there's a lot of purple going on here. So I'm going to do the Lola Rosso, that's what I'm doing next. And the temperatures are nice and warm actually now, so there shouldn't be any issues with these germinating. Again, the Lola Rosso is very small as well, very similar to the little gem I just sown, possibly slightly bigger. But yeah, I'm going to do it exactly the same way. Into the tray and just sprinkle it over like that. Whatever seeds I don't use, I'll pop back into the seed packet. And same again, a little dusting over the top. There you go, salad tray number 1 done. So we're now moving on to our next tray, and I'm going to start off with beetroot. This is the Bicora's beet, and the seeds are so cool. If you've never seen beetroot seeds before, they're like little clusters. They're actually so big, right, that actually more than one plant might actually come out of that little tiny seed. So although I'm going to multi-sow them, more than one plant might actually pop out of that little cluster. So just put in a few. I might actually just do little miniature drills on these ones and then pat them in. So I think, guys, this will be my last sowing of beetroot, and I'm just going to multi-sow them in there. These grow really well multi-sown. Did the same thing earlier in the season. Oh, I've got one jumping into a different tray there. And like that. Be nice to actually finish a seed packet. I think that's such a cool goal, you know. I think the first seed packet I ever finished was the spinach that we did a few months back. So this will be the second packet I think we're finishing. So I'm just going to go in with the last few, might as well. It's always good to get fresh packets of seed. Yeah, and beetroot do great multi-sown, and then just prick them out. Or you could just transplant them all together. So I'm just going to squeeze these in here, and then one more there. That's it. Cover them over. These little drills. Just like that. And they will do perfect. I'm just going to go in just with a little top dressing of soil over the top of these, just because they are that slightly bit thicker in terms of a seed. So just a little bit extra, just because the top dressing is quite thin on those. And they'll be great. Harvest 3 months from now with those maybe? But I think everything that grows now will start to slow down a little bit because we're past the longest day in the year. So it might take a little bit longer as we head and the nights get a bit shorter. It's less sunlight, so that's why you start off your autumn and your winter veggies kind of now. I know it seems a bit early, but you kind of got to get ahead of it, because when it gets like September, October, the growth really slows down. So they'll get a great start, and then they'll slow down. They'll slow down then towards kind of the end of the season. So next packet I'm going to go in with is my spring onions. You know I love my spring onions. These are our winter hardy variety, and I will do a few more sowings of this in the weeks to come. So I'll sow another few batches this size next month, and then in September as well. Onion seeds are pretty cool as well. They're like dark black. And I've heard that people find onion seeds really hard to sow, like they find the germination's not great on them. But so far, I've had great germination with these onion seeds. So I'm just going to sprinkle them in. I'll do loads of onions because you can't have enough onions, can you? Like that. It's very hard to tell on the soil where they are. But I think we have everything covered there. And I'll just dot them around the garden. They're great to keep the pests away. And they taste good too. And they're perfect for salads and stir fries. So I'm just going to do a little sprinkling over the top with the soil. And that's the onion sown. But my favourite, I love spring onions. I think they're so versatile. And I found that because it's such a small space that we have here, that they're a great option because you can just put them in anywhere, you know. You don't need to have a whole bed dedicated to bulb onions. So it's a really good option if you're tight on space. Window box they'll grow in perfect. Or even if you're not a big fan of spring onions and you find the flavour a bit too strong, You could try chives as well, actually. That would be another option, kind of with that onion flavour, something that grows really small and is great for a kind of tiny space or a balcony garden containers. They're brilliant. So that's my onions. And then I'm going to go in with some chard. So this is actually my packet from last year, so it's looking a little bit tired, but fab little variety. Overwinters quite well as well, and these look very similar to beetroot seeds. So I presume they're from the same family, but they're very similar to beetroot seeds. Little clusters, and sometimes you will get 2 plants out of 1 cluster, but you can have these as baby plants, like lettuce, or you can leave them grow big and harvest them as larger plants. And if it's a larger established plant, it will overwinter outside without any protection. But if you have like a little cloche cover, you should be able to harvest through the winter as well. But whatever's left for us, I will just leave it in the ground, and then it will have a second spurt of life then come the spring. So lots of chard there. Might harvest some of that as baby leaves, and then I'll probably transplant some of the others into the main growing area. They're cool little seeds though, aren't they? Oops. Cool little seeds. Makes it so easy to grow. I love it when you have a big seed like that. I normally wear glasses, like when I'm at work and stuff, or when I'm driving, I normally wear glasses, so it helps when you have bigger seeds. Yeah, just pat that in. Contact with the soil as always. There we are. Tray number 2 done. So now I'm going to start on the autumn winter brassicas. So I'm going to start with kohlrabi. So these are quite small plants. Their foliage is quite big, but they'll only grow, well, you should pick them in their prime when they're like little tennis ball sizes. So I'm probably going to sow 9. And they are really nice pickled. I pickled them in, I don't know if it was a proper pickle syrup or not. I think I just did like a vinegar sweet sort of syrup with it, and I put mustard seeds in it, dill and bay leaves, and it was lovely. I'm actually going to go in and actually put 2 per cell in these, because if they don't germinate, at least I'll have an extra plant. Sometimes things don't all germinate. And then just top them off with a little bit of soil. Not much, because they're only small little seeds. And they're a little fun thing to grow, like a little mini cabbage stroke turnip. If you like turnips and cabbage, they're kind of like a cross between those two. Right, and just pat them down. That's the kohlrabi done. I actually loved this variety so much last year. I made up a song about it, but I won't sing it to you because I don't want to deafen you. The next thing I'm going to go in with is my cauliflower. So this is called All the Year Round, and I presume that means you can sow it all the year round. Whoa, that's way too many, but that's what they look like. They're really small little light coloured brownie light balls. They're supposed to be this variety is a densely packed sort of head. Now I know brassicas generally are kind of big plants, but this is a dwarf variety, so I'm hoping it will be suitable for the garden. So I'm going to just do the very same as the others. I'm trying to get two seeds in each cell. It doesn't matter if there's more in each one. Beautiful. Just a little sprinkle over the top, like that. Done. Then the last thing we're going to go in now with is our cabbage. There's the cabbage. And like that. Didn't have any success with this last year, just grew massive cabbage trees. So we're sowing it 6 weeks earlier than I did it last year. and hopefully it gets off to a good start. I'm not really sure why it went into a cabbage tree last year, but start it early, and I think I can still sow this up until September, so maybe we'll do another one in September and they might be a bit better. So there's the seeds. So that these 3 seeds are actually all very, very similar, which I find really interesting. Most of the brassica seeds look like that. So again, I'm just going to do 9 little divots into the soil, and then I'm going to sow 2 per cell. And then maybe we'll do another sowing a little bit later. But obviously if the germination's poor, at least I've sown more than I actually need, and then I can plant what does show up. And then I can just thin out. If everything germinates, I can just thin them out, so I'm not too worried about that. So I can go in and just snip the weaker plant, or just prise out the stronger plant with a fork into a slightly larger pot of soil. There you have it. The 3rd and final tray done of our autumn and winter veggies. So I do have 1 tray left that I will do something else with, and I will show you what I do with that in the next video.